Disruptors, I want to welcome you to the Close the Deal podcast. This is a special episode of Franchise Profits. Now, if you are a parent and you're worried about your child is bugging you to get their driver's license so they can get on the road and terrorize the road, but you're worried about their safety, this episode is for you. And, well, you want other people around you driving pretty safe too. That's pretty important. So everybody, the whole family's safe. But this could also be a business opportunity for you. And we're going to share what that looks like in just a second. I've got Zach Butler with me, who is the head of Jungle Driving. Zach, welcome to the show.
Gosh, it's a pleasure to be here, brother.
Man, so where are you based these days?
Well, I live on the ranch about 70 minutes north of Omaha. So 3 days a week I work out of the Omaha office, and the other days I work out of my ranch office, I call it.
All right. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions to kick us off. I always love to ask this question is where do you like to take let's say you got a vendor or somebody who complement your business. Where's your favorite place to take someone to close the deal?
If I'm in Omaha, I'm going to take them to Mahogany Steakhouse. We raise Angus cattle. We have a ranch that we have cattle on, and it's hard to impress me with a steak.
Mm-hmm.
And that's got to be one of the best places to eat in Omaha.
Yeah, so it's good. All right. Another challenge question I love to ask. And by the way, I love steak. We grew up with Ruth's Chris here in New Orleans as a franchise. So we're talking about franchising today. What's the biggest challenge you've ever faced in business? Maybe it was in your early years, maybe it's later years. What's the biggest challenge? And then how do you overcome that?
My favorite quote is good decisions come from experience, and experience comes from bad decisions. So I don't know why it feels like, most of it's been a challenge, but there's a few things that stick out. When I was in my early 20s, I grew 7 retail nutrition stores to in a really short period of time. And that industry really got flipped on its head. I got over leveraged and I ended up losing everything, filed bankruptcy, rock bottom, and had to start over. And that was a time in my life where I kind of had doubt that I could do what I wanted to do, and that I doubted my skills. And so I read a fantastic book called The Success Principles, which I'll never forget. There was this part of that book that says you have to take accountability for where you're at in your life, and that everything that you're going through is completely your fault and under your control. And that changed my perspective. It talked about manifesting what you want and building vision boards. And I do that. I've done that every year since. I build a vision board every January. And now me and my wife, that's kind of like our January tradition. So I would say that was one of the harder things that I went through. And that book with my Jack Canfield, honestly, completely changed my perspective. And ever since then, I've really felt like I've been behind, especially on personal development. So I try to read a bunch. I try to get to the conferences and listen to the best people and figure out who the best is at whatever I'm focused on and imitate what they're doing.
I love that. And that's a perfect bridge for where the next question always goes is who or what are you grateful for that helped you get you where you are today?
Well, you could say the things that probably everyone says. You could say the Lord or my wife or et cetera. I think growing up, I grew up in a entrepreneurship household. My grandpa in 1969, he bought a livestock auction barn and he bought it for $1. And then he took on all of the debt of that business and grew it into a multi-million-dollar business in over several years. And I grew up working in the business. My dad has worked in that business since he's been like 16 or 17. It's all he's ever done. And so I think growing up in that, where your family is an entrepreneur, there's the responsibility falls to you. Nobody should work harder than you. And I learned lots of valuable lessons. I remember having to wash out this huge hog barn. Asked how much I was going to get paid, and my dad said no. And now
sign me up.
Yeah, that's really that'll be down the path of I need to go get a different job that actually pays me. And so, but looking back, we worked really hard. My family worked really hard, and that was something that you don't have to be the most talented, but to kick someone's rear end, you just got to outwork them.
Yeah. And having that, growing up in an entrepreneurial family, that makes all the difference in the world. I grew up in a family where my dad was a dentist, you know, and all I heard about was education, 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 get a job. And that's not exactly the way that works at all. And it doesn't always prepare you for when you get out of college in the least. Whereas when you're having those dining room table, those kitchen table conversations with the family, that just kind of seeps in over that mindset.
That's interesting. So my parents never really got after me on my grades. They never really got after me on where I was going to go to college. It was just kind of, looking back, I can't even remember having a conversation about if I was going to go or not. I just thought I should, I guess. And I went to community college for a few years, but that was never really their focus. It's probably unusual for parents not to, get on their kids for not having the best of grades. But I was already making my own money really young, and I was go-getter getting after it. I think maybe that's why they didn't really focus on that, because they knew that I was going to be okay. But
yeah, a lot of people put it makes sense. Business makes sense. I mean, if you're becoming an engineer, an architect, it makes you almost have to go through formal college education. For business,
well, you do, but you really only need to go through it to get the certification to work.
Correct.
Right. So that's the part that you can learn about everything on YouTube now. That's that certification. That's where they get you.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, let's talk about business a little bit. And you have a thing you call fundamentals of accountability. And you just alluded to it a second ago with your quotes and the way you've been raised about the buck kind of stops with you. You're responsible at the end of the day. Every entrepreneur is responsible at the end of the day. And let's unpack that a little bit, and how, when someone's thinking about going into business, this is a critical piece.
Well, right. And so I have been a franchisee of multiple concepts. I've been a franchisor of multiple concepts. I've consulted with multiple concepts, and I have this perspective that when I was looking for a franchise concept, if it made money was not even remotely close to the first question that I had. It was always, is there a lot of competition in that space? That's where I wanted there to be competition. That meant there's a demand, and if there's other businesses doing that exact thing, that it has to make money. So that was something that for me helped me make some of those decisions. But when you get into it, I think you can look at, as an owner, a franchise really is a systems, processes. They don't manage the business for you. You still have to go out there and actually do it. But I'll never forget, our business model. When I first got into franchising, I was in a franchisee of a nutrition store. In the core service, how we paid the bills, I think changed 4 or 5 times over the decade. We started with weight loss was bread and butter. Then it was sports nutrition was the bread and butter. And then it was, we did these different types of plans and meals and foods. And then it was health. And that really led me down a path that if I'm going to be in business, core service that I do has to be what keeps the lights on. It can't be 10 different things. That focus on that core service is important. But going through that, we had a bunch of kids in their 20s that were non-college educated gym rats, and we had to micromanage a lot of the effort and activities at the store level to make sure that the process is being followed to get the result. And that was a really good education, where we brought in EOS, where we managed different types of metrics, and we put people on the right seats so you come up with your systems and processes. But I remember that we would go into stores that were really crushing it. We'd find that, well, we're getting everybody up on this scale, and they're giving the experience that we're supposed to. Well, we then came up with a process that we found that we could manage how many weigh-ins were that day versus new customers. And we come up with a formula where we could say, these stores are using the scale effectively and these ones aren't. By managing or micromanaging that simple activity of making sure that you're bringing that up in the process with your customer, we raised revenues. Then we had one that was signing up for our membership. We had NPS score that had a question attached. Did you hear about the membership that we had? And if that was a no ever, I mean, it was a huge deal. So we micromanaged to get the process that we know led to the result. And so for me, when I look at business, you always look at your KPIs, it's revenue, it's average ticket or margin. But you got to figure out what activities or effort-based things lead to those activities or lead to those results. And you have to be able to measure them. If you can find a way to measure the activities and effort that lead you to your results, now you have something that you could point someone, you can hold them accountable to do it, and you know if it's working or not.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you apply that, and you've learned that through how many years of franchising have you been? I mean, you've been at this game for a while now.
Oh, 17.
Yeah, 17 years in total. Wow. Okay, so you got a ton of experience. And so for those of you listening to learn about the brand, we're going to unpack the brand now, because I think the foundation is important to understand who the person is behind the brand. You got a little piece of that and the mindset of that, which is critical to the success of what you're going to do going forward, whether it's this brand or any other brand. So Zach, let's talk about Jungle Drive. And
in this space, which, to be transparent, I knew nothing about before I was signed and did the acquisition. I had no industry experience, and but I know business. And so the founder of this business, Fred Westdale, him and a partner created Jungle Survival Drivers Training over 20 years ago. And his other partner was one of the key individuals that built the UPS driver safety program. He was credited with lowering the accident rate by 70%. He retires, first talking to his neighbor, Fred Westdale, and they decided to start a driving school for teens that apply the state curriculum, this methodology, and they blanketed it with a fun jungle theme. And the idea behind this is it helps, from a teenage experience, it helps teens identify risk before catastrophe. So they classify drivers by animals. And so I always joke, there's a gal in the office, Jungle Jen, we call her. Jungle Jen is a hyena. She's the worst driver on the road. She demonstrates road rage and she sniffs all the other animals. There are crocodiles that are cars waiting to pull out of a parking lot that'll drag you to your death if you're not careful. So they use these fun terms and this methodology that helps kids recognize risk that is not really there in this space. And so when I got introduced, the first thing I went and looked at was as much competition as I could, and it was all boring, vanilla, and it sounded like the DMV just had been creating driving schools. I'm an experienced person. I like any business I'm in. I think the experience that you provide your partners, your employees, your franchisees, your customers is so important. I thought, what better way to differentiate yourself than with a better curriculum, with a actual teenage experience that's fun and full of energy compared to the competition.
Yeah. So the brand and the founders, talk about the founders a little bit, because I did safety training for 3 years when I led the Carolina Loggers Association. And I saw the statistics, not for cars, but for 18-wheeler trucks. And I was concerned. It's concerning to me to see some of the statistics out there. But I also I saw they had a guy from UPS who was hired by the insurance agency for good reason, and because they understand how critical this is to UPS staying on the road and minimizing risk and saving lives. And in that logging business, it's a very dangerous business, and those log trucks are dangerous if somebody does not know what they're doing. And it's interesting, the terminology you all use. I mean, as a kid growing up, that would have stuck with me. So it sticks with the kids, I'm sure. The gators, alligators, hyena, all the terminology they use makes it easy for them to adapt to it and learn it and keep an eye out for it. But all that is rooted in the founders, and one of them is tied to UPS. Talk about that, because that shows you the depth of this training. It is not just the DMV training. I went through the DMV training. You did too, probably, I'm sure. And it was terrible. And that was about probably 99% of the population has gone through that. So you're bringing something completely fresh, completely new that actually sticks. So let's talk
Well,
about
it
that.
is proven,
Yeah.
so the founding location's from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and the University of Michigan did a study, and they say that 80% of teens will be in an accident in the first 3 years of having their license.
Wow.
They did a survey with 1,000 jungle parents, and that same statistic is 1 out of 5 or 20. And
Whoa.
so that's a state that it is a mandated, and to get your driver's license, you have to go through a graduated license program with driver's in it. And so it is a superior curriculum to what people are typically going.
80%. And then you know what? I fell into that 80% too, my first year.
I did as well.
Yeah. I ran into somebody back to somebody with my mom's
But
country's
I think you're
car.
right though. The founder, so unfortunately, one of the founders passed away during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so Fred Westdale is now our founder, and Fred's in his 70s, and he is probably the sweetest guy I have ever met in my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm even kind of scared to drive with Fred because I feel like I'm going to let him down when I'm driving. But there's a level of passion there where Fred wanted to bring the parents and get them more involved. So he has a parents night.
Mm-hmm.
He has a parent ride along. And the goal is that we can't be the only people that keep our kids safe. You need to be reinforcing what we're training. And so they've really built this, unique business over 20 years with a singular goal of how do we keep kids the safest as possible? How do we prevent risk and keep kids safe at all costs? And I think that's where the things have changed and shifted over 20 years.
And I know the other gentleman was a UPS background. Is that correct? Yeah. So, and I know how stringent and how detailed that type of training is. And to have that as a foundation, and the vision that they had to get it going was something else. Let's look at it as a parent. Let's say the parent is looking at, okay, my kid's getting ready to start driving. What does that look like for the kid or the parent?
Well, I'll tell you, when I went up there, I had my entrepreneurship hat on,
Mm-hmm.
and I kept thinking, this is a great business opportunity. It was not until I did a ride along with Fred,
Mm-hmm.
young lady and her father, and that is when it hit me that this is what my daughter is going to.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't I want my daughter to go through a program that is going to leave a lasting impact on her and create an experience? So, I think for a kid that's going through this, I was the kid that wouldn't have been able to pay attention and stay engaged, but they've really come with videos, and they've brought humor into it, and they've added different types of questioning and games and contests during the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Make it, we'll just say tolerable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think if you surveyed a kid, they'd say, I'd love to go back and do it again.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they'll remember it, and it'll be a tolerable experience to sitting at the other place with the vanilla walls and learning a vanilla curriculum.
Yeah, I can remember mine because it was so bloody boring. It's painful to go through the driving school at a high school. It's just terrible. It was like summer penance to go through that program. And that's how everybody felt. At least they bring in, but the thing is, I remember it for the wrong reason. These kids will remember it for the right reason and it could potentially help them save their lives or the people around them on the road. Let's look at it now from the business standpoint. Talk about the business. What does it look like for somebody to get into this business? What are they doing? How many people does it take to get started? Let's just start there.
So the investment level that we have is 190 to about 313,000.
Okay.
Now there's 2 vehicles built into that. There's a build out cost that can vary, but an owner operator is going to start with one other instructor. So the owner operator will get certified by the state to be able to teach and drive the kids. They'll hire one more instructor to really start the business.
Mm-hmm.
We do have like a manage the manager kind of ownership opportunity where they'll have a general manager that fills that exact spot where
Mm-hmm.
the franchisee is spending more time on business development and managing the KPIs in the business from a higher level.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have a classroom, which we think is important. Having the kids having to go somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
be immersed within the curriculum is more effective. So they need about 2,500 to 3,500 square feet.
Okay. So they got that involved. And the branding is spot on. I mean, I've seen the vehicles, the wraps of the cars. They look, I mean, that alone is a
They
marketing.
stick out like, because you
Yeah.
can't be missed.
Yeah. I mean, most time it's just student driver slapped on the side of the car.
And you know, it's funny. The founder actually, all of his cars were painted as a cat because they're the most careful. You're the most the safest. And so all of our vehicles have a different wrap based on. We kind of kept that alive from the founder.
That's very smart. All right. Now, okay. So and what does the revenue side look like on this model?
So in 2024, the Grand Rapids location, which is what we have in the item 19, did just over 591,000,
Mm-hmm.
brought around 21% to the bottom line.
Wow.
Now that's out of 39% occupancy, which means that out of the available classes that they could schedule, they had 39% of the classes scheduled.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's Fred's running a business about as big as he would like to run.
Gotcha. All right. Then this is always a critical piece too. Someone getting started. What type of support and what are the layers of support that you all provide?
Well, most franchises, we have an onboarding process from when you sign the agreement. It's all automated through technology that helps you get your right licenses, insurance, get your bank account set up. So anything that you can think of to start the business, we have documented that you'll go through with support needed.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're getting ready, close to launch, come out to Omaha for our official training.
Mm-hmm.
We'll spend 5 days getting ready with kind of a little bit of training, and then when you open, we do bring someone out to help you launch the business itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then ongoing, we have, and this is something I've been trying to work on for a while, is that we're going to have representatives per region of the country that are incentivized by performance, not just paid a salary and sitting there and waiting for calls. Is that we want to be proactive with the support that we provide that can actually bring more profitability to the locations themselves.
And the marketing to get this going, what does that look like? I mean, the car itself is a billboard, but you still have to get those initial customers coming.
Well, right. And I'll tell you, it was a breath of fresh air. When I went up there, I said, Fred, how'd you guys get your customers? What'd you do?
Yeah.
How'd you first get that first wave? And he goes, well, Zach, oh boy, we did a mailer once. And then he paused, and that's all he said. The only thing they've ever done was a mailer. And so we obviously hope it is that easy, but we're planning it for it to be very difficult just so that we were prepared. And so we broken it up into 3 phases. There's awareness, conversion, and then referrals. Mm-hmm. So the awareness is getting out in the community, getting noticed, going to the events, getting in with the schools. We have a program where we sponsor different activities. The conversion piece, we have a targeted mailer for households that have a 15 or 16-year-old in them. Mm-hmm. We have some digital ads that have basically sign up at this date, get this much off your curriculum, more conversion type ads. Mm-hmm. And what I'm most excited about is we have a referral program that kids can take advantage of. So imagine that you have a class of 30 kids. You get up and say, hey, he wants to make 50, 200, $300 today. Every kid raises their hand. They scan a QR code and they can send a digital invitation to all their friends.
Oh my
that's
God.
Directly integrated to our CRM. So in Omaha, at a corporate location, we're doing a $50 referral. So if I refer someone, they click on my invitation, go to the website and buy, that it immediately sends them $50, like to their phone that they could put in their Venmo, their bank account.
Oh my gosh.
So we have immediate gratification tool that turns every one of the kids into our own marketer.
That is absolutely brilliant. I love it. I mean, I can imagine a kid saying, okay, you got 5 people to do it. All of a sudden, he's got $250.
Oh, I would have been posting stuff in the schools.
I know. I was selling Bubblicious by the stick, and marking them up a little bit. It's a lot better.
So I think we anticipate having the most the biggest roadblock is going to be adding instructors at the appropriate time, which the CRM has built in alerts where we can know where hey, it's time to add the instructor, but we're applying more resources and manpower is helping identify existing state certified instructors and then training future.
Okay. Ideal candidate. Who makes a great ideal candidate for this business, you think?
Well, we were talking before doing this a long time. When I first started, somebody would ask me to have this broad, it's a person this age and this background. And the goal was you didn't want to eliminate anybody that might be a buyer or could potentially get a bid. And what I really realized is that you have to be very narrow with your avatar. And so we want, it's that couple that everybody wants to be friends with, that they're involved at the schools. They taught their kids Cub Scouts or Girl Scouts. They're coached. They know the staff. They're involved. And it's, if you had 5 or 6 calls in a day, it'd be the best call you had today. They just brought so much energy and excitement. They were fun to be around. And that is really important for a concept that provides an experience to teenagers.
Yeah.
People hire people that they like and that are similar to them. So we can't have, and we do not want, the CPA or the CTO that wants to be behind the scenes and doesn't want to talk to people. Like, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
And so we need people that are going to be really focused on delivering the best experience possible.
Okay, I love that. That makes a lot of sense. I imagine parents too probably resonate with some parents. I would imagine as the couples.
It's everybody that I've talked to. So my kids are younger, but you talk to someone that has had recently sent their kid through it. It's like, gosh, I had to wait 4 or 5 months to get my kid in. Yeah, it was a boring experience, and I still to date have not seen a single advertisement in this space.
Yeah.
It's in 37 states, it's a mandated service. They have to go through.
Okay. All right. So let me switch. We're going to start landing this thing. What is the number one piece of guidance you give anybody considering a franchise, be it your franchise or any other franchise? What's the best piece of advice you can give?
Beware of the follow the process statement. There's a lot of franchisors that I hear that say, well, that person's a low performer because they just need to follow the process. They didn't follow the process. And that really bothers me because unless you're a McDonald's or unless you're a Jimmy John's or, a big time national brand, your process is not done. It's not fully baked. And so, that statement has always really bothered me. It's an easy cop out to say that you didn't have a good enough model that allowed A, B, and C players to be successful. So I think when you're looking at the brand, there's 3 things that you have to be able to identify. Number one is that does the business or industry make money? Is there competitors out there? Is it a needed service? You have to be able to say yes to that. The second is if you got to look in the mirror and say, can you imagine yourself doing this day in and day out? Is this something that you don't have to be passionate about it, but can you look yourself in the mirror and say, I can do this? The third is, have you asked the right questions to make sure that culturally you match up to the people that you're going to be potentially working with for the next 10 years?
Yeah.
And as a franchisor, I can tell you that last question, I did not ask myself enough. Person that we're about to sign, am I going to be at home on a Saturday looking at a phone call from somebody going, can't believe I have to talk to this jackwad. I don't want to talk to this.
Yeah.
That's the last thing that I want. So we want people that are going to fit within our culture and values.
That's very wise guidance. Last question. If you were looking back at your 21-year-old self, because you got started in business early, what would be the one piece of guidance you would have taught yourself? Or you would have wished you had been told and adopted?
So I'm an EO now. It's an entrepreneurial organization. I meet with 5 or 6 other business owners once a month. And I can honestly say that's one of the best things that I've ever done in my life. And so I think being able to get yourself outside of the bubble of the brand, or, there's other owners within a franchise that you can be in your own little bubble. Having a network of support that can help you understand if you're over leveraged or if you're making bad decisions or if you're going down a path spiritually that you're not supposed to go down, I think is what I wish I would have done much, much sooner.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Same here. All right, folks, if you'd like to learn more about Zach's brand, you'd like to help, this is mission driven too, in a lot of ways. It really is. I mean, you are saving lives at the end of the
Well,
day.
our LLC name is Saving Teen Lives LLC. So I mean, it is the one mission that we.
I didn't know that. Okay. Well, so folks, you listening to this, you looking for purpose driven. This is as purpose driven as it gets when you can start saving lives. Get in touch with me. Visit yourfirstfranchise.com, yourfirstfranchise.com, and I will get in touch with you right back at you as fast as I can. Absolutely. All right, Zach, I want to thank you. This has been great. Man, you are going to take this model and you're going to bring it nationwide. That you're great at this, and I appreciate having you on the show.
My pleasure.
All right. Thank you. And that is a wrap with Zach. And folks, for those of you who are mission driven, this is, wow. What an opportunity there is for this. And it's wide open, because think about the DMV. When you went through driving school, what was your experience like? And then compare that to what we just talked about. The kids are going to resonate with this. And think about this. The founder started this with a flyer, one mailer. And think about why he didn't need to market it again. Because the next grade comes up and they got to get their driver's license. And the next grade comes up. And those kids talk about it because they enjoy it compared to what you and I probably grew up with the typical training, which was awful. No one enjoyed that. But we did it because we wanted to drive, and these kids want to drive, and let's make it fun for them and protect all of us because they're hitting the road. All right. I'd love to give you a copy of my brand new book called Your First Franchise Roadmap. Visit yourfirstfranchise.com. I answer all the questions you might have if you're thinking about getting into a franchise, how to go about it, what's the process look like, and I break it down into very simple steps to make it very simple and easy for you to follow and go through. And get in touch with me at yourfirstfranchise.com. And if you're on the business side of this and you want to grow a business and you want to use franchising to scale it, check out closethedeal.com. That's where we take care of that business. And this is for yourfirstfranchise.com is to connect to brands and Zach's brand. And you know the drill. First, I'm going to ask you a favor. I want to provide as much value as we can continue to do that. That's why I provide the book. That's why we provide the podcast to educate you. And all I ask is a favor. Please leave 5 stars for this on Apple or Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, ring the bell, share this with others. If anybody you know who's considering a franchise, this is a great resource for them. And you know the drill. Be intentional. Make today a great day.